About 24 hours has passed now since I got my order of Alumilite here, and it's been sitting here in my workshop at about 68 degrees Fahrenheit overnight, so I would assume that those jugs have warmed up to probably 65 degrees, and according to the instructions I have 30 to 40 minutes at 75, so I should have at least 30 minutes here that I can safely make a mess. And, speaking of making a mess, I'm almost positive that those pumps are probably going to drip. So that's why I've got bibs on the jugs. Now, as you can see, I've made up another homemade mold here. And I haven't made it any bigger really than I have to once again. And I've got a little piece of hard maple. And I've just got it tacked with glue in at an angle on the bottom there. And I've calculated out the volume of this entire thing less the volume of the piece of hard maple in cubic millimeters. So in other words, I need approximately 36 milliliters to fill this thing right to the top, which isn't very much. That's just a little more than one of these. I think one of these is, what does it say here? Yeah, one of these is 30, so a little better than one of these full is all I need. So anyway, it's going to be interesting here. Now this is the first time I've used these pumps, so it may take a little bit of going here to get them primed. The idea is that they are supposed to meter out exactly. Maybe I should loosen the cap here a little so that the air can get in. Oh, I think I could feel it coming now. Sorry to be wasting your time here. Okay, maybe the next one. That feels pretty solid. There we go. Okay, now we want to fill it up to about 20. Whoop! Like I said, make a mess. Once the pump is completely primed, one cycle is supposed to be exactly an ounce. I'll probably rig up a much better system in time here. A little bit more. Tiny bit more. I don't want to get this on my fingers because I forgot to put on my rubber gloves. Okay. Now turn this so it'll drip on the bib. Well, I've already made a mistake here. How many of you saw it? I picked up the measuring cup that had the B on it and I filled it from A. So as long as I can remember, I guess it doesn't really matter. Now, the dye that I'm going to use, it says it mixes best in you mix the dye in part A. So I'll have to remember that A is actually B. Yeah, off to a bad start here, but I guess it's not too serious. Okay, now, so I have to remember if I want solution A, I have to take B. Now what I want to do here is I want to make this so it is just opaque enough that it's going to make it so that I can't see the brass tube through it. Now I've never done this before, so I'm just going to see what one drop will do to it. Now there's no hurry on this because it's not, the two chemicals are not mixed together. Oh, that mixes pretty good. I was noticing that the solution A is a lot thicker than solution B. Whereas with the Envirotex, best I remember, they were both about the same. Well, I think probably one drop is going to be enough. I can't see through that. Oh, is that going to fall over? No. Once I mix them together, that's when I got to start my timer. Now you'll be interested to note that those spouts that I was worried about dripping, they didn't drip at all. Okay, well, here we go here. Let's see if I can get it all out. Got half an hour to do this, so yeah, I think I got most of it there. Kind of hard to work with these rubber gloves here. Oh, this one pours in easy. So the B, which says A, is much more, would you call it, viscous? Okay. Now, hope I calculated right. That almost doesn't look like enough. Okay, so let's mix here for about 3 minutes or so on. I think I'm going to stop the camera while I do that, and I'll try and remember to start it up when I pour. Okay, I've been stirring now for about 4 minutes. And now we're going to see if I calculated right. I don't want to fill it right to the top. I'm going to save some of this and we'll top it up afterwards. Now this may or may not be a good idea. And we'll zoom in. And here goes nothing. What is happening here is very similar to when I do the cactus juice process. The only difference is, instead of leaving it run for 2 or 3 hours so that it removes all the air out of the wood, like that little piece of maple, for instance. Now, of course, I would never do the cactus juice process on a piece of maple like this. I don't need to. But if I was to leave the vacuum on for a long period of time here on this maple, I suppose, a lot of the acrylic, or some of the acrylic rather, could get into the maple and sort of spoil it a little bit. And I'm hoping that's not going to happen here. So I'm only leaving it on long enough for the bubbles that are stuck to the surface, you might say, of the wood to, excuse me, to swell up and, float to the surface. Now that's the idea here. It's maybe a crazy idea. I guess you noticed when I released the vacuum, the air rushing in almost blew it over. That would have been a disaster. Okay, now what I'm going to do before I put the pressure on, I'm going to give it about 20 minutes to sit here. Well, right now we're about 18, 19 minutes into this. And I've always got this one here to sort of be able to monitor to see how things are going. Once it starts getting thick, then I'll know that I've got to put the pressure on. Now here is my thinking. This is why I want to hold off with the pressure as long as reasonably possible. Let me zoom in a little bit. Okay, the little bubbles that are in there right now that came out of the wood that ended up into the Alumilite. I keep wanting to say Envirotex, but anyway, they're about as big as they're going to get under room atmosphere pressure. However, if I put this thing into the pressure pot right away, the bubbles are going to get smaller, like maybe 8 times smaller in volume, and they're not going to want to rise to the surface as fast or as easily as they will right now. So I may as well leave the pressure off as long as possible. I hope you follow my thinking here. It makes sense to me. Now, I've never heard that or read that anywhere, but this is just my idea, and it might be all wet. And it's still pretty liquidy. Mind you, it's only 23 minutes. I guess the next time I make up my mold, I'm going to have to make sure I seal it better. At least from the inside. It's sort of coming through that little knot hole there. Well, we're at 31 minutes now. It's still pretty runny. It seems to be slightly thicker, and it sort of feels like it's warming up, which makes sense. I'll just give it another few minutes here. I can actually see little micro bubbles bursting on the top here every once in a while. So that means they're still rising. Well, we are now at 34 minutes. I think maybe now is a good time to put the pressure on. Okay, I left it another couple of minutes. Still pretty runny. Now I have to make sure that I get it in far enough. The reason being, I'll show you, is because this goes in about 2 inches. This little piece of sponge on here, that's just to help to disperse the air, even though it's just a tiny little hole here that it's rushing in on. I don't want to take any chances that it's going to spill whatever I put in there. Now this does not have to be real tight, because the rubber seal actually seals itself once the pressure comes on. It's like the lid on your pressure cooker. Okay, see if we can get it now so you can watch the gauge. Now my air compressor is just about due to kick in, so it's not going to go real high. Oh, by the way, this cylinder, it's rated for up to about 3,000 pounds, so I don't think it's going to burst at 120 or even 140. Well, it's still pretty runny there, and that's after 41 minutes. Hope I mixed it right. Well, I guess we'll know tomorrow. We'll come down and tomorrow morning we'll take a look at this and see what we got. Thanks for watching.